that we had some short break, and we have had some more energy to continue with the intellectual exercise. So we just want to invite you all again for the next presentation. My name is Fondo. I'm originally from Cameroon, where we inherited two languages, French and English. But I only got closer to French when I was at the university. I moved in Finland for studies at the University of Helsinki. After my completion as a postgraduate, I had to move to Helsinki and continue with the research. My background is on political science and law, and more predominantly with philosophy. So today I will be unraveling the issue on imperialism with more particular attention on southern Cameroon to show an example of the effect of the past and present realities of the term imperialism. So if you look, you will actually see the map of Cameroon, which is right here. And at the tail of the corner, you see southern Cameroon. So south is bounded by Nigeria and Ghana, and then southern Cameroon is this way, which means French Cameroon is this way, which therefore means that southern Cameroon is at a spot between two giants. And this reminds me again about some history in Finland, where Russia was this way and Sweden was this way. But yet Finland emerged as a great nation. Southern Cameroon is not going to be different. So I just wanted you to see this map, that where I come from is from this area. And this division came as a result of the colonial activities that kept the people in dagger's draw in the whole of continent of Africa. So since Africa is a whole big continent, that's why I narrow it down to be focused on southern Cameroon, where the example can be seen and lashed in the whole of Africa. So when the idea of the colonial master was triggered by imperialism, or let me say the imperialist quest to expand the empire, what we have to know is that these empires or the colonial tests could not have been successful if the people did not have prior knowledge about if those land actually exists and what they can acquire from that land and how they can, what they should do in order to acquire those materials from those lands. The knowledge they had about the continent of Africa was that Africa was an infinite darkness. It was full with some kind of barbaric and savage activities for people. The imagination was clouded with a lot of worries. But that was one of the edge that also made the explorers to actually discover for themselves if all this imagination, if all this speculation we're having is real. And that's why they decided to embark on this dangerous move. Some historian, as well as great mind, has raised 3 points as to what triggered the imperial's action. 1, they talk of political. 2, they talk about the issue of economy. They talk about the religious aspect. And they talk about the need for scientific findings, to name just this. But upon all this, there was a hidden agenda which was pushed by economy. So, how did the people get this information? Explorers, including clergymen like evangelists, who took upon themselves to sell the religion or to make the people to understand the consciousness of a god, went, met the native people, conscientized their mind. But during that process of the movement, these explorers who came in different approach wrote down sufficient information after interacting with the native people. Because one writer, a Kenyan scholar, John Betty, said, Africa is notoriously religious. What does he mean by this? It means that the hospitality of an African or the consent of an African is always misunderstood. Either it is wrongly received or badly understood because they are open-minded. And so when people are welcome, the culture is looking at it that they are giving a reception to foreigners. But the foreigners look at it that these are stupid people to be exploited. So there is this conflict of understanding between those who are welcoming the foreigners and those who are coming. The idea here now that I will proceed to make you understand is that those who came wrote extensively. If you think of people like David Livingstone and even Dr. Eugene Zingraf, that was someone who actually came to my own home village. So when they came back, they get a lot of information. That's why you see, if I could just go through this paper and read something to you which someone like Edward said in 1987, entitled Orientalism, writes, a truly effective and colonial conquest requires knowledge of the conquest people. So if you want to actually colonize or you want to carry out an effective exploitation, you have to know the native people, know even their culture, understand their terrain, understand what they're about. And so he was not the other one. It was not the other one. Still, we are not going to go into an academic debacle because of time. Let me just draw your attention of one very important aspect which Thomas Babington Macaulay, who was a lawyer by profession, and also, I could say, one of the architects who paved the way for imperialism. This is his address in 1835 in the British Parliament. I have traveled across the length and the breadth of Africa, and I have not seen one person who is a beggar, who is a thief. Such words I have seen in this country, such high moral values, people of such caliber that do not think we would ever conquer this country unless we break the very backbone of their nation, which is her spiritual, cultural heritage. And therefore, I propose that we replace her old and ancient educational system, her culture, and if African thinks that all that is foreign and English is good and greater than theirs, then they will lose their self-instinct, their native culture, and they will become what we want them, truly dominated people. So you see that this comes to justify that they actually understood the area extremely well. And now he is telling them how they can proceed in order to get those things. So which means that coming there was not going to be a safari tour. It was going to be to confront a battle. And so they are going to be ready to use all sorts of savage methods, all sorts of brutality. What is important is what they want to achieve. And that's why I'm inviting you all today to watch a drama which talks about why people leave their home country in search for better life. Because it's a summary of all what we have been talking here today. You see it today on stage. As well as an African traditional cultural dance to make you understand what kind of people were these. Let me not deviate. Let's go back. In 1884, a group of imperial powers sat in Berlin and held a meeting to discuss how they are going. Oh, sorry. I thought my voice was too loud. No. A group of people sat in Berlin, holding a meeting to discuss how they are going to partition a continent, like a piece of bread, or like a common meat. And in this meeting, they agree that there's going to be what they call effective occupation, which means that when you get somewhere, you actually hold that place, make treaty with those people, and then you claim it to be your own. The question I'm asking myself, when you come to hold a meeting to make a decision, the people that you are going to exercise your carnage on them are not part of your meeting. So, from the very beginning, how was it justifiable? And who set the rules? Who gave the order? All of us, we start asking our question. We start asking the question, what is happening? So in 1884, Germany was not very interested about what was happening in Africa. But to be a big power in Europe, you must have colonies all over the world. That's how Germany quickly went to Africa and jumped in some continents, in some areas, which Cameroon was one of them. So when they took over this area, they pacified it, set up an administration. From that period up to when World War I broke up in 1914, and Germany lost the war, when the war finally came to its close in 1819, the powers now that fought against the Germans, which were called the Allies, now decided that let them seize all the colonies which Germany had. Because it is from those colonies that Germany was taking the strength in order to continue the war. And so when they took over, in a meeting that ended in Versailles, they agreed that some of these colonies should be kept in the hands of some of the colonial masters as mandated territories. The case of Cameroon was a little bit sad. When they came, Cameroon was divided into two. Part was governed by British, and part was governed by the French. And so what happened was that Southern Cameroon was being governed from Nigeria, because by then, the governor general, who was like the president at that moment during the colonial period, governed both Nigeria and Southern Cameroon from the eastern region. Cameroon was under that rule for about 40 years, until after the break of World War II. Then a new world order now ushered in. Two superpowers came: Union of Soviet Socialist Republic and the United States, on both sides. So, with their influence now, there was a need now to liberate all the states and encourage them for self-independence. Unfortunately, what happened is that most of the colonial powers who were managing those states used their intellect in the form of a paradox, which means that they were not actually willing to give independence. But they were like playing what they call language games. And besides that, the kind of independence that was expected by the UN was completely different from what we are finding today. And that explains why you see that there have been a lot of skirmish, there have been a lot of problems within the African continent. Because when they came to partition the place, they did not respect ethnic grouping. They just take people from this tribe to this tribe and let's just merge them. And from there was a lot of misunderstanding within that period. And that's what has generated problems from time to time up to this moment that we speak. So, when it was time now for Southern Cameroon now to be given independence, in the 1st of January, 1960, France gave independence in quotes to French Cameroon. And then now it was time now for Southern Cameroon now to also have its independence. Because many things came up. Britain was not willing to hand full independence to the people of Southern Cameroon. And that is why you see today there is war in Southern Cameroon, which I'm going to explain to you clearly. Britain argued that Southern Cameroon does not have enough resources to manage its states. And so there was a resolution that came out from the UN. It was this resolution, let me be very sure. Yes, 1541, which states that if a sovereign state or if a state looking towards independence does not have sufficient resources, this state could integrate with another state that already has independence, but on clear condition. One, if this state which is coming to emerge with another state that has already independence, there must be what they call equal power. Secondly, they must share what they call an equilibrium in the affairs of the states. Let's take, for instance, judiciary. They must be equal in number when it comes to judicial issues. When it comes to legislative, there must be issues equal in the parliament. And executive, they must be rotative in power, which means that if the president comes from the country that already has independence, and this country integrates, if the president from here is president, the next president that will come from the other one that integrates. But you see that even the body itself, called the UN, is extremely problematic. Because it is like just saying that, go give that man a paper, or go give that man something to eat, without following or to actually see if it is done. So you see that it was just like a language game that things keep rotating. Now, during the period when Southern Cameroon was under the British rule, they had inherited a complete different culture, the Anglo-Saxon culture. The law was a common law. Everything was different, even the language. Now you are coming to match these people together. When the French believe in direct rule, and the Englishman does not believe in indirect rule. These people speak French. Now this one speak English. This one, they have civil law. This other one, they have common law. So the whole thing was conflicting. So the first president that came here was Amadou Ahidjo from the north. And this Amadou Ahidjo came in when the French people had changed the policy, or let me say the colonial masters. This imperialism now designed a new way of approach. It was not more about the use of guns as before. It was more to do now with going through the leaders, influencing them, and pushing them now to make final and quick decisions at the detriment of their own citizens. That's why you see, when Ahmadu Ahidjo became the president there was Jambu Foncha. They agreed that, okay, we are going to integrate now so that we become one. Jambu Foncha came with a good intention, but Ahidjo did not come with a good intention because from the French system, they don't even believe in federation. The French man believe in what they call overseas province of France, which means that all his colonies is part of the province. It's just part of the province of France. It's not like saying that it's your nation. No, it's just a province. And the capital is Paris. For instance, the capital of this country is Yaoundé. But that's just your own. The real capital is Paris, not Yaoundé. Because they don't believe in what they call federation. So it's just an overseas province of France. So when they came together now, there was a kind of friction because behind there, Southern Cameroon had its National Assembly, French Cameroon had its National Assembly, and then they have one common house that they meet there and discuss issues. But when Ahmadu Ahidjo had accepted English Cameroon, what they started doing is that they started complaining that it is so expensive to run these parliaments. Let's dissolve all the others and have just one. That was a step now for assimilation to fulfill that hidden agenda. And so they dissolved the other parliament in Southern Cameroon. And now Southern Cameroon now was gradually resolved. Before we ever joined them, Southern Cameroon had a state of its own, what they call the quasi-independent. It has its administration. It had even done what they call democracy and change power. It had its bank, good infrastructure, that the economy was booming. And this very region contributed to 70% of the entire region output GDP. So how could you say a British man that these people don't have money to be on their own, when they have money that is about 70% of all? For instance, the oil zone comes from here. All the plantations come from here. The seaport comes from here. The timber, the gold, much of the thing comes from here. Then you British man, how did you say these people cannot manage themselves? It is believed that Britain had done some exchange of Ireland with Frenchmen, and so Southern Cameroon was indirectly sold out. Still the move again of imperialism action without the cause of human rights. And then in 1957, when Ghana had its independence, Kwame Nkrumah made a statement. The independence of Ghana is meaningless except the whole of Africa is liberated. And so Kwame Nkrumah had a very close relationship with Southern Cameroon. And so the fear now is that if Southern Cameroon had become independent, there might be an influence of communism here, and then from here now, the whole of that region now will be influenced with communism, and things will change. So there was this tension. That's why British and the French now, they started coming out with some kind of language games or some games now to see how they can hold Southern Cameroon under siege or under some siege to avoid that communist movement. Because we had people, most of the people who promoted communism, even in French Cameroon, they took shelter here. So there was this fear. So at this moment, before long, they realized that in the schools, the Anglo-Saxon education, they sent French people to come and teach in that school that could not even teach English, that could not speak English. How will we be able to disseminate the information to these people? The common law, which is the English heritage, was conflicting with civil law. But then you will send judges who do not even understand the common law to come and make decisions in Southern Cameroon. How could that happen? So many things have been going on. When it comes to the issue, even for appointment, Southern Cameroon is less seen. So the whole thing has bubbled up to from 1961, when they gave a fake kind of independence to us by joining another, up to this moment that people could no longer hold it. So when they had a meeting now, they made the Minister of Education
and told him that, listen, there is a need for reform. But because they have the plan to assimilate, they did not take it serious. They made the Minister of Justice and said, listen, there is a need for us to make a distinction between the common law and the civil law. He did not take it serious. We realized that the way things were going, it would not act fast. The whole of southern Cameroon will be usurped. And all the sons and daughters of southern Cameroon may be eradicated, and a new set of people may occupy that land. Because most of the southern Cameroonians have traveled. You find them now in all over Europe, America, whatsoever they are living, they have grouped themselves. Like here in Finland, I'm the chairman of Southern Cameroon in Finland. And so we formed out what they call SCACUF, Southern Cameroon Ambazonia Consortium United Front. And the idea was to seek for autonomy and to have ourselves independent. We are no more interested about the unification that was before. We are now interested on outright independence. And the way we came to discover was that speeches will not help. I think blood and iron will be the best way for people like this one to understand. And that's why we have grouped ourselves all over the world, and now they have declared war, and we have armies that are defending the land. And I want to tell you, in 2000, when the war started, they described us that we are just two cubes of sugar. They will destroy us within 6 months. But now this war is getting to 6 years. 6 years. And now they are confused. They are begging us for unification, for what they call federation. We say we are no more interested. We want our independence. So I'm going to show you a small quick slide that you will watch. You will see the way demonstration took place here in Finland, and that is how it's happening in the rest of the other European countries to galvanize support in order to support the people of Southern Cameroon to have their autonomy. Yeah. Not this one. Video. That's it. That is the flag of Southern Cameroon. All right. So that was just to show you how determined the people are. And what is happening is that it's happening all over where they are residing. Just to have a nice support back home to usher in the change. I just want to make you understand that I am acting now as the chairman of RASMUS, Finnish Network Against Racism, and I'm also the chairman of African Civil Society in Finland, and also the executive director of Palace and Cultural Network, PACONET. So, as you see, I'm also like the spokesman for the Southern Cameroonians in Europe. And that's how we keep ourselves going in building network for collective push. I'm sure that you may have 1 or 2 questions. So much we can talk, but time is not the best.
Maybe we have some time.
Yes, better.
Yes. Thank you, Walter. Mike, how long is your presentation?
I don't have any idea, but I'll try to make it as brief as possible.
Okay, so do we have maybe 5 or 10 minutes more time for the ask questions or something like that?
Yeah.
Okay, so questions, kysymyksiä. Mielipiteitä.
I just wanted to ask, how is the problem of having natural resources being solved for Southern Cameroon as you go toward independence?
During that period of Southern Cameroon moving towards independence, there was actually no skirmish or actually a problem within the people of Southern Cameroon. It seems as if during that period, they have not discovered so much wealth that is within that area. The people have exercised what we call a sound democracy, where during the time when they had the quasi-independent, power changed hands from the first premier in Delhi to Jungle Frontier with no bloodshed, no problem. So the state was triumphed. But now the transition became different, because when they now had merged themselves, what they call integrating to have their independence, I think the colonial powers had mapped out that area and saw huge wealth. And during that period, they had also realized a deposit of huge reserve of petrol. And that is exactly what triggered now the issue where, instead now to prepare the people of self-independence, it resulted to what they call conflict of interest. So the question of independence now seems to have been suppressed or badly received or unjustifiable implemented. And so the people now were just like sold to the bigger power, so that through this bigger power, the bigger, one of the imperialists that is behind the French will use it now to grab what is there for their common interests.
Joo, olisin kysynyt, että mitä jos tuossa perusteluna käytettiin, että Etelä-Kamerunille ei tule itsellään toimeen taloudellisesti, niin jos siellä, niin kuin oikein ymmärsin, niin, jos oikein ymmärsin, niin 70% BKT:stä syntyy siellä, niin onko Kamerunilla niin kuin itsellään voimia sitten tulla niin kuin, yksinään toimeen valtiona?
Minä ymmärrän, että kaikki, mutta okay, that's a quick translation. Not everything was understood.
Do you think Cameroon can survive themselves without South Cameroon if South Cameroon have 70% of GDP?
Yes. Of course, before the coming of the colonialists, the people were living and they were surviving, no problem. And we believe that it is only when the people came and left, they left problems. That's why Chinua Achebe wrote the text, things fall apart, because they came with a lot of problems. Southern Cameroon has its own resources, which they could manage, if they can manage with a good accountability, without problem, and they will survive. Because before we joined them, they were on their own, under the French rule, and they managed. So bringing us now to merge with them now is only inviting a lot of problem, because of that imperialism quest that have been planted in them, which was corruption, looting, and all like, it is looming in their mind to get as much as possible. So you see, this colonial practice is not only for those who brought, but the doctrine that they left is still like pushing the people to continue with that same doctrine. So I will feel that they can survive on their own. But even if there is a need for us to cooperate, we were still willing during the time when we had federation, that okay, since this site is more richer, they could always give what they call a certain percentage to this site. But we realized that the issue was not even the word, according to me, was an attitude problem towards the people. So we realized that it seems as if their problem was just wealth,
and they cannot live in harmony with others. So the best thing is that let's be on our own and let them be on their own.
So you think France used Cameroon in tool for imperialistic aggression?
Yes,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Because during the time of Southern Cameroon, Kwame Nkrumah of Ghana had visited Southern Cameroon twice, and they had a lot of cooperation. Because we were going towards independence, we had already started building cooperative with other nations, with the hope that when we become independent, we will not have our free hand now to trade with whoever, diplomatically or whatever thing we want to do. But when they noticed that the influence of community was growing stronger, especially through Nkrumah, they feared that maybe if they be independent, communism now will be easy to spread. Because of that region that you see like that is very strategic. Because Southern Cameroon is like between West Africa, it's in West Africa. It is where they attach with French now, French Cameroon. That's why you see Cameroon can be placed between West Africa and Central Africa. So it is a very strategic zone. So one of the things that made them to fear is that there is going to be a spread of communism, because already political parties that were in Southern Cameroon propounded the theory of communism. And that's what they love best, because it came out from their culture and likeness, the idea of communalism. And so that was one of the biggest fear, coupled now with the rich resources that they found there, it increased it again more. But the primary and sensitive was that idea of ideology.
Thank you.
Just a quick one. What's the position of the African Union about your struggle for independence?
Yeah, we have been able to reach out to all the international bodies, just like other bodies. The African Union is more of a name than an actual body that was formed to look into the well-being of the people of Africa. Because you see, this topic, imperialism, is a very good and sensitive topic because it's not limited. It's not limited. It was not limited only with the action to come and loot. It was expanded to survey, and making sure that anything that they see that can come up that will be repulsive or will bring in a kind of well-being for the good of the people, they suppress it. That's why you see when African Union was formed. Okay. Nkrumah wanted a situation where Africa will be able to live on its own, because he had studied in the West and then understood exactly the situation of the approach of imperialism and what they are up to. And so his idea was that this union should be a kind of union that will be able to address situations if any African country has a problem. In the case of Southern Cameroon, we have been there twice, but they're just like the days of League of Nations. They are more like verbal than practical. So when you look at it well and you study the African Union, you see that it's just like one of these houses that are hanging around the place, UN, OAU, Francophonie, all those houses. The actual thing that we're expecting for African Union, where it was out to mediate, try to bring justice, is completely absent. It's just like a safari club where people come and sit there and look into issues. That's how I look at it. So the only way, if people want to get their independence, is to use what we are doing now in Southern Cameroon. Arm yourself, get ready, and defend your motherland. The people will understand the story. And I'm telling you now in Southern Cameroon, I will tell you, even though we see graphic images I can send to you, it's normal that people must go through hell, but we will achieve that independence. It's too close.